All right. All praise to the Most High Yahweh and to his son, my brother, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. Peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters from the Israelite tribes. All right. In this video, I wanted to make, because of the fake news that is going out there about these presidential candidates that we have in the United States. So there's in America they always been these movements of groupings of people dealing with similar ties and a lot of similarities. It's almost like a second coming event with a group of people and movement and a setup. And so I wanted to get into this whole setting of propaganda dealing with the presidential candidates being um, this and that. So we're gonna get into um, the basic. So a long time ago, I used to be a big GOP person. A conservative Christian Republican. You know, I was like pro Republican Party, and I understand certain things about it, about the party that I like and the people, but I wasn't too aware of the history, and the history of that party wasn't often taught too well in school. But for some odd reason, in news, they portrayed certain things about the party that I liked, even though, like they say, all groups of people have a few rotten and bad apples or byproducts. So, in the media, they tend to portray these parties as, for the people, by the people, uh, these entry level grassroots people moving up to become, you know, local representative, state representative, U.S. representative, and or presidents, and or CEOs or executives. So the that's good and all, but they don't get into a lot of information about the policies, about their agenda, you know. And it used to be to where the media would give presidential candidates a hard time about their foreign policies, but the foreign policies wasn't as highlighted as the domestic, even though foreign policy is a domestic policy within this realm of understanding. So I wanted to get into this video. We're talking about this ironic thing. So I wasn't aware of Iran Contra or any of that, or the government purposely placing drugs into black communities because of a depopulation thing, and the same with guns and abortion clinics and so on. And these are agendas promoted by both sides. The abortion clinics via the Democratic Party and the black community, um, the liquor stores, the what else? The drugs, the guns, the open um, operation status, or helping gangs become who they are within the communities and in the prison system. These are agendas that both parties, carry out on the black community, on black people in America. So, um, whenever I make these comments on these local channels dealing with news and everything, it's almost like everybody has amnesia. They forgot about simple concepts of the different parties and the morals and the values that you know Americans claim they used to have or should have. So, what comes to mind? So, I remember being a very hardcore Republican, and I came in contact with people that I knew, and I'm just generalizing the conversation, just in case I keep repeating this story over and over. So, in general, you know, people told me to look into more things beyond American politics, but into foreign American interventions and companies, multinationals, and all these other entities dealing with America abroad. And the reason why they say that, because these parties, these candidates, these officials that represent districts and states and stuff, and even parties, they could be blackmailed, they could be paid off, they could be, not just paid off, but what's popular in these settings is a job waiting for a family member. So, um, as they, fulfill their terms and everything, eventually, when they stop becoming a politician, they'll still have kickbacks from those favors. They'll still have um, a lot of influence with these groups and people as a lobbyist. So, right here, um, ties in this video ties into all this information. So, when I start to slowly change from being a Republican into a libertarian and a critical thinker, one of the big alternative media sources out there was Alex Jones. He's not as big as he used to be, but in the period, before 2012, he was big. Before he started to have his meltdowns and um, family problems and issues like that. Um, he was a decent source of information and news. The only problem is Alex is like a hype jockey. He hyped up a lot of the information, even though these are sources from mostly news, and then he'll use some of his uh, high end sources to confirm certain things. So the media won't come back at him and say, "Well, Alex Jones said this," when Alex Jones is simply reporting on what he saw on Drudge and or CNN, Fox, and other outlets. And Fox will go, "Well, it's a commentary. It's not this and that." So those commentaries became what we call talking points. So everybody media outlets had talking points. So there was loosely facts, it was loosely resourced and confirmed, you know. And sometimes they would do it that way because, alternative media was starting to take off, and they go, well, we get, bait them, bait click the alternative media. So uh, in the libertarian system and setup, we are thinking, you know, about a lot of things and concepts of uh, capitalism and protect protectionism. You know, if that's a word, protectionism. So we always value our rights as an individual, and that was the key thing. That, and was almost the thing that made and break the whole libertarian uh, movement and understanding of existence. So you have this whole concept of, you know, questioning and thinking and connecting the dots. And I remember coming into um, the who and where and what of Alex Jones, and I was like entertained because it's a entertainment value that you was watching, and he would live up to his hype by, ranting a lot, and he'll get off topic, and he'll promise something, and it would have never happened because the rants, his little bit or stick that he would do to drive up his ratings would take over. So, um, with all that being said, he was a character, but his product produced a lot of information, you know, and with that information comes with different types of understanding and different types of, saying, what does this mean for me, So, of course, he's a white guy, and of course, he is promoting a brand to right white America that many white Americans wouldn't, see or get into. He's representing a alternative class towards labor in an under middle class structure. He's trying to reach into the middle class structure because for white America, that's like the cream of the crop. It's not the wealth class, it's the middle class because the middle class is a consumption base. Libertarian system is based off that consumption of information, material, and all kinds of products. So he's reaching out to these labor class and these rednecks and stuff. And I'm sorry if redneck is like bad terminology, but Southern folks, if you don't mind me saying that, but some people do refer to themselves as redneck, just as I refer to myself. Um, Sometimes, not all the times, as a black person, because like it's a sarcastic statement, even though I know fully as well today and now that I'm an Israelite, you know. So, big difference, but um, to get a kick from people that are not understanding of other people' mental capacity, I play um, the black person card. I go, oh, a black person. this and that. I'm black, and I'll play it. But other than that, I strongly identify as an Israelite. And yes, I know my tribes, and yes, I know my lineage and everything. So I'm good with that. But back to the topic at hand. So he's promoting his product to a certain demographic. So if black people like me and other black people, Hispanic people that are non-white, other groups of people, maybe Hispanic people that are um, European, all these demographic, Asian people and other groups of people, even probably um, European Jewish people might um, fall victim or in love with his product of entertainment. So within all that, you have um, the product, and then you have the information, and then you have that what if, and that what if setup causes a paranoid, a paranoia understanding of being over aware of certain things. You want to be aware, you want to be woke, but you don't want to be, very, paranoid. And I remember when I first got into critical thinking, I wasn't a libertarian right right away. I was just looking into the different conspiracies. So um, it took time for me to understand the different iconic personalities of these uh, alternative setup. You had Jordan Maxwell, you have David Icke, you had even economic people like Max Kaiser, um, Peter Schiff. You had so many um, uh, Calente. You had a lot of people to to study and to figure out what this other side of information is, and you start to look into the Illuminati, the Freemasons, Bilderberg, and so on, and you get caught up in these uh, rabbit holes, what we would call them, and you go, "Oh man, this is so crazy," and you start to question, and you look way too far into things, and if you are a black person looking into this setup and you barely accept the understanding and know the understanding of the identity of you being an African American or a Black American, you barely would grab the basic understanding of this. So, in general, you know, all this conspiracy stuff is centered around black people not knowing their identity. So, most of this information is the remnant information. Um, all these groups of people making a pact or a treaty with each other to put black people, West African Bantu stock people into slavery, and then to keep them there and to profit off them, and by creating a head start. Now, like all treaties throughout history, none of those treaties last forever. So in the process of these treaties, you know, being built and rebuilt, and some of them being broken, you have groups and entities sharing information about certain groups to to mislabel, on purpose to create, you know, distance from the different groups, even though they all had the same hand into slavery and taking people identity and switching people identities and so on. So in that process of these groups of people having their fallouts, the countries and member states and special interest groups and fraternities and stuff, all these people are slowly being, you know, broken and taken away from their treaties and pacts, because that's how the Most High made the system. You know, it was purposely built that way to um, to create a fake great society for the greatest uh, collapse known to their own society. So uh, you have that understanding of um, what this means to everybody else but yourself, because you as a black person, you tend not to fit in to this society, and they do that on purpose, you know. And when I was a libertarian, they doubled down on that. They made you a individual, and you had certain rights. They proclaim you get more rights as an individual. No, that's if you are a wealthy white individual running a company. Your company becomes a person, and then you can bail it out via a government bailout or bankruptcy, and then you can bail out yourself via tax write-off or bankruptcy. So, um, as a black person, you know, these alternative news outlets, they don't tend to tell you the demographic detail. What do this information mean to a white person, a black person, Hispanic person, Asian person, European person, a Jewish person? They don't tell you that. So so while, you know, being a libertarian and finding out all this new information, um, you get into the police state, the whole concept of 1984 and those types of conspiracy. So Alex Jones is known for Infowars and everything, and Prison Planet, but he also should be known for uh, not just the news shows that he would put out, but the documentaries. He had done a lot of documentaries, and one of the documentaries was the police state. And so I went to Amazon, and it's an actual video, and maybe you can find it on YouTube somewhere. Um, but so Alex Jones documented a lot of stuff about um, the government and about police departments. So the irony, so Alex Jones um, helped grow this movement called the Tea Party, and the Tea Party was infiltrated, if I could say the word, infiltrated by, you know, interesting groupings of people. You know, I'm not gonna just say the far right, but corporate entities started to back the Tea Party, and that what happened to the Libertarian Party and the Tea Party. It was infiltrated by corporate resources, and you know it's common for the Libertarian. system to be heavy corporate, and they are used to dealing with it. But for some odd reason, the libertarians started to connect themselves to the Tea Party, and then the Tea Party was loosely associating themselves with the Republican Party, and those groups of people became the MAGA, the Make America Great Again people. When and basic understanding, the Libertarian people and the Tea Party people would have nothing in common with the policy choices of Make America Great Again. Minus, the gun rights. Everybody is pro gun. The Republican Party, and even the independents. A lot of independents like their gun rights too. So the whole thing of the Tea Party uh, way back then versus the remnant of that whole system becoming the MAGA, you know, like a lot of people forgot that Sarah, at one point in time, Sarah Palin, out of all people, was the face of the Tea Party, and not just the Tea Party, but gun rights, which was crazy. Man, it's mind blowing. So you had that, and you had a interesting photo op that Palin did with Donald Trump, and this was like during the many times that Trump was claiming that he was going to run for president, and I remember I think Trump was like flipping and flopping from both sides. I think he was originally gonna run as a Democrat, and then he changed his mind to a Republican, and then back to a Democrat, and then he started to think like a Republican. But for some odd reason, he he lived in New York. He liked that. I'm pretty sure he's a hardcore liberal and just don't want to admit it. And these same liberal um, groupings of people are, um, backbones to those far right ideas. So that's the irony. So I remember, that photo op, and I remember um, Palin, reaction to Trump and stuff, and you could tell she was uncomfortable. You could tell that it was like a fake arranged, meeting, and it was for pictures. And this was the term that they say co-opting a group. That's when I believe that co-opting of Tea Party and back into the Republican system and as a grassroots for a a label group to be um, labeled in the future for a reason, started. So um, that's the background. So so here, one of the I think this is one of his top selling videos, the police state. So this is a documentary dealing with, people, First Amendment, Second, all the amendments that white people tend to forget that they have. And this is the whole irony of the white privilege, So way back then in the 2000s, the early 2000s, and many years before, for some odd reason, white people wasn't aware of their influence and their white privilege. The irony. So it was so bad, and not being able to understand their all, their whole inheritance and existence, to where Alex Jones created a video about it. So it's not that this was like the awakening or the awareness point of the police state, but this is the awareness point for white privilege, because when you look at the documentary, you go, well, if white people wasn't so nosy and so arrogant, they would get away with a lot of things and more, and they have been. And that's the whole irony of this. It's so crazy now when you look back on those things. So, um, so they they made this video, and there's a lot of funny stuff that goes on with these journalists and even Alex Jones and his people go undercover to do drills and stuff. And it's like, hey, guess what? You have a great government that's pro white people, and they want to keep it that way. They are not trying to take away your gun rights. They are trying to destroy the remnant of black culture and society. If you let them do that, and then maybe then they'll move on to um, either co-opting you into their society, because there's levels to white privilege, and um, understanding what kind of white person you are. So, uh, and that's where Alex Jones was taking advantage of his viewers and other people that he was purposely pointing for ratings from. So, uh, that irony, that police state, so the police state should have been and was, like Alex Jones was saying, was for the white people, supposedly. And then all of a sudden, once Alex Jones made these videos and his show gotten bigger, the understanding of the police state magically disappeared, and he started to rant more about white privilege and other things that he could get away with. But instead, he instigated and he became more arrogant, and he created a problem for law enforcement. So uh, that's the crazy thing. So you have the police state, the takeover, the total enslavement, and the total enslavement is the other overwhelming conspiracy. And it's not just a conspiracy, but it's already on the book law. It's about those carbon taxing policies that countries and groups of people have to pay into, and that's feeding into the whole algorithmic system of the banking narrative of the banking system running the planet. And the real deep state, from my understanding of knowing this information, is the banking system. And then the next arm of the deep state from that point on is the media. So you have to, everybody goes CIA, the military, the Rothschild, Bilderberg. It's simple. It's a whole grouping of banking institutions, and then it's the whole entities and establishment of media institutions, you know. And when y'all figure out the total understanding of the banking system, and then the media, the overall entities that make up the established foundation of media, then y'all will understand what America is. Other than that, um, this is gonna be way above your head to understand. But some of those people that you know used to follow Alex Jones, if y'all see this video, y'all will understand. So you got some NWO policy stuff. Some, it's your typical conspiracies. You got dictatorship stuff. You got all this interesting stuff. You got Terror Storm, Endgame. Was there any more? He has some other stuff. He had a lot of videos. So so the police state. So not just that Alex Jones um, was this pro constitutionalist guy, but he was anti globalist. But then you started to see him hanging out with, you know, Charlie Sheen, Joe Rogan, and now Donald Trump is his favorite politician. And not to mention all the other sources of news like Stone. What coincidence? So I remember when uh, Stone and Alex crashed the set at Politicon, I think, of TYT. I remember, I think at that time they were still libertarian, but now all of a sudden they are hardcore, die in the room Republicans. Like, that's the crazy stuff that I find that typical. It's typical of white people to flip flop, but when black people change their mind, they get thrown under the bus and labeled heavily. But a lot of politicians get flip flopped. So so that was the backstory on this. So you can look up any Alex Jones episode of Infowars on YouTube or whatever source of internet you have, an article, and you could find so many eras of film being pro um, white privilege and or pro um, police state because of the whole dynamic of am I aware or am I not aware? I don't want the police state, but at the same time, I don't want my white privilege. So it's like, hey, you good here. It's like that white lady that got caught driving drunk, and the cop was like, "Hey, don't worry, you good here." You know, it's like, but I heard you shoot people. No, we only do that to black folks. You don't have to worry about being drunk and driving. And then like the recent video, this white guy being like drunk and impaired. He kept on driving. He got out the car. The cops looked at him falling out everywhere, and he said something about he knew people and the cops left him alone, and he drove off crashing into things, and the car is smashed up. That's the understanding of your white privilege. You gotta use it. You gotta use it or lose it. So we get into this part. So you know, how is it Trump is gonna be the law and order candidate today when he is still the president, and he still don't understand that he is the president right now at this moment, and yet he's promoting a campaign of law and order where he could lead by example. Walk what you're talking, man. You are you're slow or something. The people around you are slow or something because it's like, hey, prove your point. You know, put guns on everybody. You want order. You do what you um, campaign for, and then you go against it like heavily, and then you'll make your point. But of course, you can't do that because then you be a real politician. Remember, you are a reality TV star, being or portraying the president. So uh, you have to walk a fine line between your supporters, meaning your donors, versus your grassroots people, meaning the people that actually vote for you. So, um, for you to use media, because Trump not just is using like Fox and CNN to create the negative and the positive, but he's in the middle of the matrix using social media. He already conquered alternative media by the photo op with Sarah Palin, because even not just Alex Jones is big on Donald Trump policy and Donald Trump himself, but the people of No Agenda podcast, um, the other group or the other alternative media source that I used to listen to when I was a libertarian, um, they are pro Trump too. And then Max Kaiser, he's pro Trump too. Y'all, y'all understand that he gave bailouts at the same rate that Obama did. Y'all understand that. And I thought we were all in the same grouping of uh, letting the private system, correct itself. But instead, Trump directly gave Wall Street bailouts. And now all those Wall Street entities are tied into banks because of the Obama bailout. So he did not just bail out Wall Street, you bail out the banks again. And that's the other irony. Like, so you have all these ironies that, you know, are dealing with, the opposite moral and policy structures that regular libertarians and Republicans disagree with. They're making a lot of these things that liberal governments and um, Democrats would double down on. They are doing during the Trump administration. So Trump is claiming that he's pro this, pro that. He's saying that Biden and Harris are anti-law when we know for a fact if you're a black person, we 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 know these policies that Senator Biden implemented, and when it got to the state level did something else. But you put it, you put the laws into play. You and Bill Clinton, Hillary, and all these other politicians, y'all put these bills into play, knowing that the states are gonna do something else because of funding. So don't act like, oh, we didn't know it was supposed to be a federal bill. It's supposed to be this. No, y'all purposely did that. Y'all have interns. Y'all have other scholars um, advising y'all. If I could use my Texas language, y'all advising y'all on the finished product of the bill and what would happen if it's voted on and passed and signed. Because these laws, many of these laws are representing packages of money to these representatives. Like a law should be the old money kickback clause for a lot of these government officials when you are reading into all these things that they are doing. That what a law, once it's signed and delivered, is a kickback, and that what we have to understand about these things. So I'm not gonna play it because like it might be a copyright thing, so I'm not gonna get involved with those problems. But this is an old article, and he called certain people predators, and he pursued a Reagan like a President Reagan like strategy towards black men. You know, of course he's gonna deny it, but there's plenty of video of him talking about all kinds of stuff and all kinds of things. So just rolling down this. So we understand how tough on law Biden is. We already understand how tough on law Harris is. So her truancy policy was heartless. So for Trump to say that he is the law and order candidate is crazy because like for him to get a greater support, he would have to go hardcore right. And he's in that process. And the good thing is that Biden and Harris might expose him, might make him expose himself as a supernaturalist, and he he's being pushed that way because we already know Biden and Harris is gonna get questioned about the laws and things that they did towards black people, and their immediate response is gonna be, "Well, Trump is constantly catering to his base, which are militias and right wing organizations that he's closely tied with. And these people are heavily donating money to him." So Trump The only good thing about this election cycle is you could really see underneath America's skirt now with what games and stuff they're trying to play with the government and politics. It is getting so bad in DC that the military is starting to separate itself from the commander in chief. And we saw this coming, well, at least I saw this coming, especially when he started to do that fencing setup with redeployment to where he wanted to go into a isolation type of redeployment versus a offensive redeployment. Now the isolationism is like a libertarian concept to bring all the troops back, and if anything, have like a remnant amount of troops in um, strategic locations. Other than that, for him to pull as many troops back here, the Warhawks in the Republican Party, the people that are not the MAGA crowd, they are they are angry. They are becoming independents and Democrats right about now because a lot of those people are like heavily patriotic. All those people are heavily funded by military contracts and kickbacks and lobbyists. So Trump, you know, he's being exposed with his um, lack of experience in politics, and um, the only good thing about Trump personality and persona is uh, he's a good trash talker. He could you know trash talk up there on the level of Ric Flair because some of the stuff he says is funny. Some of it is like, man, this is like being elementary, man. And some of it is like high level to where you go, well, one of his aide wrote that for him, and he had to go back in time to connect the dots on something else, and he added to what they told him a little bit. So this period is basically showing that America government is is not running or not is not for the people. It is not running the government that the people desire. You know, is only running the type of government that people desire in wet dreams. So this is the whole concept of the police state being reverted and diverted to other groups of people versus the white people. The white people, guess what? If you leave your government alone, hey, none of this will happen. If you don't overplay your white privilege hands or your status, hey, nothing will happen to you. We are here just to bother, you know, the black people and the other people, the immigrants, keep them in check, lower their population, increase ours, and, you know, go on as long as the banking system and other elite societies would let America go on as. But if all y'all keep on, going to the left and into the middle with politics, and if y'all continue to say, Black Lives Matter, if y'all continue to support LGBTQ plus, you know, we're gonna have to come for y'all. And this is what happening. They're like, well, we gotta lose a lot of people. We have to lose a lot of people to get what we want for most of us. And so they are purposely going after uh, these liberals now. So remember the police state, when the police state was all about the libertarian and the conservative people, the families, and the carbon taxes and stuff. When the police was like arresting the the people like the hippies, like the underground weather people, and the other radical hippie groups and communist propagandist people, you know, it's a full circle coming back to that period to where now you have alternative media creating the same problem and bubble with reality. So this is what I wanted to share, and I wanted, I always want to do like short videos, but sometimes expounding on things and ranting a little bit within context helps with a overall understanding of something that I might say later, you know. So maybe this long of a video wasn't necessary, but explaining the whole content between what the media is trying to portray with Trump versus Biden and Harris is not realistic, you know. Even when you look at Pence, all these characters are the same when it comes to laws versus black people, you know. So, but I also made this video because when I go back into the history of the Tea Party, when I say the Tea Party and the MAGA people, people get nervous and they start to delete my comment or my reply because it's the truth. You know, Rand Paul is the proof. Rand Paul and his dad could have been a presidential candidate, and he refused to do a floor count at the convention. And he probably would have uh, won the the um, the nominee if he would have done that, but instead he's like, no, I'd rather do this, I'd rather do that. And at that moment, a few alternative media groups were saying that he was influenced by the Russians. The Russians got a hold of him. And for many people that don't know, um, when coming into the libertarian format, you are um, introduced into alternative media, and back in the day, RT Russia Today wasn't as big. Russia Today is a state-run media outlet from Russia, but it's calling itself in the past before a lot of us found out that it was Russian state TV. It was RT, and RT just basically stand for Russia Today, but it was just RT, and they try to not disclose that they was like heavily funded by Russian government, and eventually mainstream media and other alternative media was saying, "Oh, RT is like Russian media." So um, Ron Paul, via the alternative media, was saying that Ron Paul was approached by Russian people to stand down um, during his campaigns and stuff. So he will run, and then he'll, not try to overachieve. And so you had the irony. So you had John McCain running, wanting to audit the DOD, the Defense Department, but him as a senator on an oversight board, he could have easily done that to begin with. He had that power, but instead he would use a presidential campaign format to run on auditing the Defense Department, and that's the hardest thing to do. And him being a lifetime uh, military person, we already know that the military has unlimited funds. He just didn't want to disclose that before it was exposed, and eventually it got exposed that the military don't need Congress to react or to act on anything. As long as they have funds, they could go and do whatever operation they want to do for how long. And that was that Jeff Sessions moment in the video or in the hearing where the uh, top Pentagon officials were saying, "Hey, we don't need anybody permission. We don't even need United Nations. Once a operation is critical, we put out the package of military personnel that we need. We can respond to it. We don't need funding." And Jeff was like, What you mean? You gonna just go around? Yes, we're gonna go around our government and do whatever best for the country. What we always been doing. Nobody told you to have this hearing to figure out um, taxpaying money going back to the representatives instead of towards the national debt. It's like everybody got their money. It's not our fault that you know the national debt is as big as it is because politicians want to do certain things with tax credits and other stuff. That's your problem, your business. But of course, the Chiefs didn't say any of that. But they did say um, cryptic stuff about certain things, and it's a good watch um, if y'all ever have a chance to look at those hearings about a lot of stuff. Uh, Jeff Sessions, um, who else? Even y'all gotta look at Jeff Sessions videos. Y'all gotta look at Biden. Y'all gotta look at Biden video, not just this one, but the video where he slips up about the banking holiday, about what him and Obama was planning on doing when they got elected, and if the economy or the market collapsed, that they was gonna set a bank holiday to where Americans was gonna be limited to days to where they could go to the banks and take out money. They could only take out a certain amount of money and so on. So a lot of these things are have been exposed. It's just that the cycle of news and all these social media platforms and information and news sources nowadays overrun and overrule those old school parts of exposing the system. So you had Ron Paul and Rand Paul being compromised, and I remember We Are Change stalking Paul after he had to give his blessing to, I believe, Mitt Romney. He had to support Mitt Romney, and from that point on, he was a GOP candidate. He wasn't your somewhat libertarian Republican person. He was all the way GOP, and now you can see Rand Paul live up to that status, and even Marco Rubio, was also supposed to be a Tea Party candidate, and he got flipped into being a heavy GOP type of person. So, and all these people, Alex Jones used to, favor or support, and then he took his support away from. But the irony is, you're a Trump supporter, and Rand, he's a Trump supporter. All these people are these supporters, are these supporters of these people that they said bad things about. Ted Cruz said a lot of bad things about Trump. Trump said a lot of things about Ted Cruz, and you know, politicians do make the best of friends and the best of enemies and supporters. Once you get that blackmail on each other, I guess you settle your beef. It's like, okay, unless I have to use it, I guess we good. So I just wanted to do this video to respond to the these comments. Like my comments, I have decent comments sometimes. I go into some heavy satire, but other than that, a lot of people forget like short history. So I can understand why a lot of people say, "Oh, slavery was a long time ago. Oh, Jim Crow was a long time ago," because like they could barely remember a decade or 2 decades ago. Like they forgot the war on drugs, but now all of a sudden, Trump is a advocate for rehab center because of fentanyl and meth and opium, which are drugs that are heavily hurting his base and these rich classes of white people. Okay, you know, save your people because like the stats are showing, y'all are not having increased birth rates. Your birth rates are collapsing. You know, all the dirt and depopulation that y'all wanted to do on dark races of people are coming back home to roost among your own people. So, I just wanted to get that little Tea Party rant out into the open because um, many of my brothers and sisters, they come into the truth or into the understanding of being an Israelite from a Christian church background, and none of them probably never voted or never got into politics. So many of them skip over a lot of information dealing with structures and things that affected them directly and indirectly. And so now they are learning about their true heritage and identity, but yet you you need to be told about other parts and other information, so you can have like a full understanding of the circle instead of the straight line being presented from, Christianity into a Israelite existence. You know, there's a lot of in between those groups and information that we could benefit from um, when knowing what went on. So um, it is it's like a good amount of us that we do come from this conspiracy uh, realm of thinking, and we apply it into the understanding of who Israel is and everything. But we can't overthink all these things, because we've been there before with, finding out information that we need to know in a short period of time. But we can't overdo it. When we come to the understanding of who we are ourselves, and then finding out who our people are, we got to take time. We have to do proper research. We can't become paranoid. We can't be accepting every black person, because what if these are terrorists? What if these are 2/3? What if these are just the combination of a admixture group of Moabites and Japhetic people that are dark race people that mix that look like us? So we have to thoroughly investigate and research all of these points of views and make them into a edifying point. So when people on YouTube comment back to me about certain things about Biden and Harris, I could care less. I don't vote. When I used to vote, I used to vote straight line Republican for a while, and then for the remaining periods that I was voting still, I was vote straight line Libertarian. Even though after a certain point, the Libertarian candidate will openly say that they sold out. Only Ron Paul was the only person that didn't say. He could have said it. But all the other people, they well, special interests got to me. They go, what platform do you want from your party to be accepted by the GOP? And that person got it, and they moved on. So um, for people to go, oh, the Democrat, I could care less about the Democrats. We all know that the Democrats used to be the whole concept of the slave owner party, but at the same time, the Republican Party, the same thing, you know, same thing with them, with their party setups and supporters and so on. So uh, I just like to leave my comments and wish people luck when they try to reply to them. But I like making these videos because, like, now, hey, what if somebody, delete my comment? What if YouTube pull my comment? Well, I can make a whole video, hour plus video, and rant about it and bounce different thoughts and experiences um, into a video format and let other people comment on it. You know, I'm not making channels just for likes, dislikes, or subs. I don't do any of that. I could care less about that. You know, I do these things just to over exercise my First Amendment. And with that, I just want to say once again, all praise to the Most High Yahweh and to His Son, my brother, Amashiach Yahushai, and peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters from the Israelite tribes. Thank y'all once again for watching these videos.